Welcome to another edition of the Academy of Worship podcast. This is our July edition. We are sitting here a day before Independence Day, looking at each other through some glass in a small door studio. And we want to welcome you here. My name is Chris Davis.
I'm Lauren Levasseur.
And today we are going to be having some fun with talking about the rock star mentality. Which sounds ominous, and I guess it could be, depending on your implementation of it as a church. What do we mean? We are talking about the potential separation, and Lauren, jump in here if I screw this up, the potential separation of the worship team from the congregants. And this can come in many, many forms. Lauren and I in show prep are talking about kind of how it can be done, and we'll talk about each one of these. But the big one can be what we're going to call the green room, and not every church, we understand, has a green room. What is a green room? Is a place that churches have for either the band or band and pastor, or band and or pastor, depending on how you have it set up, that is actually comes from a worldly thing, which from production studios, TV studios and things, it would be for the, quote, talent to sit and wait and have brown M&Ms or not have brown M&Ms.
Also theaters, any venue.
Yeah, right.
Any prep room for the artist.
Right. So that's what a green room is, and a lot of churches have them, a lot of them don't. But I think the syndrome can still exist depending on what you do. We also just have going on this rock star mentality thing, just this kind of mental separation that can happen, with those that are on the team. I think if not encouraged to break that habit. So one of the things we want to talk about is, as a worship team, whether you're behind the soundboard or doing projection, or you're doing cameras or lights, depending on what kind of church you have, or if you're on the platform itself singing and playing or playing an instrument, how we as worshipers and worship leaders can encourage those around us to be more participatory in loving on people and being part of the congregation as opposed to a separate piece of it. Now, I do want to put a disclaimer out there saying that we know that not everyone has this problem. It's not like we see this everywhere. It's just something that came to our mind and we've seen discussed in various places. So,
and it's something that I think every team should keep in mind every once in a while, just to remind yourself and kind of clean the rooms of your heart kind of thing, and just figure out, am I starting to feel any of this creep in? Because, it is that situation where we are on stage, everybody's, we're aimed at them, they're aimed at us, looking at us. There's all the lights, there's the stage, we're playing music, which, just in itself can connect with people emotionally. We're skilled, so people are going to like what we're doing. We're playing music they like.
Right.
It's that whole thing where it can quickly become just like any performer, where we start to feel special, or people start to put us in a special setting, kind of set us up.
Yeah.
Without anybody really realizing what's happening. So it's something that I think we just all need to take inventory on every once in a while.
Right. So one of the things that kind of set us down this path was there was an article written, and I want to give credit to the author because it was well done. It's on travisagnew.org. No, we don't know him. Don't know anything about him other than this one article that I was linked to and read. We like most of what he was talking about, because he talked about a lot of this stuff, and it's the article is entitled, I think, "Death to the Green Room" or something like that. And he discusses the fact that he is not a fan of the green room. His church has one, and he wants to change the name and all this stuff. But anyway, and it started us thinking, because Lauren has a church that has a green room, or I should say, he's a member of the church that has a green room. He doesn't own it. Our church, the one I lead worship at, doesn't have a specifically built green room, but we've kind of converted an office into kind of a thing there where we can bless the team with, coffee and things like that. So
scones.
Scones. My wife is amazed. She makes all the food for us, and so good. Anyway, now I'm hungry. So I guess the first thing I want to discuss, Lauren, is that. So the good intentions with the green room. I think let's cover kind of like, to have a space for the worship team to gather either before a service or after, during in some cases, depending on what you're doing. The good part of that.
Right. So in our case, if we're doing a Sunday morning, we're getting there at 7 a.m. We're not leaving until 1:30 p.m. It's a long day, 3 services. There's a lot involved. And so as a blessing to us, people have gotten together and used their spiritual gift of hospitality and all this stuff to use this room that we had built that has a full kitchen, lots of couches, tables and chairs for everyone, to where we can grab a bite to eat. A lot of times on Sunday mornings, it's like a full breakfast meal served and everything.
Right.
Which is just amazing because we have some great people that's their gift.
Right.
And like, it's not a hardship to them. To them, it's them using their gift, and it just flows out of them. And so we're blessing them to be able to, for them to be able to do that.
Right.
That makes sense.
No, that does make sense because that's their gift and an offering they can put up to God as their offering. And as a side note, I want to say people with the gift of hospitality are blow my mind because I'm not. I mean, I don't mind being hospitable, but I wouldn't say that I have the gift of hospitality because there are people that I'm just like, man, the stuff that you're doing, and they're just like, oh, this is like where I'm at. This is like my act of worship to the Lord is like just giving to other people. I'm just like, pfft. So
yeah,
thank God for all of you and everyone else who has spiritual gifts as well. Everyone has one, but that one blows my mind.
Yeah. So anyway, it helps us as a team to be able to have all that going on throughout the morning and afternoon because it's a full work day basically, and so we can focus on the things we need to do without passing out on stage because we haven't eaten. And so there's the food aspect of it and just kind of the service and all that. And then also, a place to kind of go to plan, figure out, okay, what harmonies are we doing on that? And, we're going to change the bridge on that. We're going to go to this, whatever. Any last minute things like that. The pastor can talk with us. We can all pray together, whatever we need to do. It's kind of our place where we take care of business, we relax, and all that.
You did say one thing that got me thinking, which was you said it's a full work day. And I think, most, if not all of us who are involved in doing worship ministry understand the amount of work that goes into it. And it's pleasing. I mean, it's something we all do. Most of us are volunteers. Some of us aren't. But either way, it's still work. And I think one of the things that maybe outside people don't know is that when we're done, yes, we're worshiping and yes, we're giving our all, but I think there's a couple of extra aspects that are on top of people who help lead worship that at the end you are drained, you are done. At the end of the day, you are just, I'm like, yeah, it's a full work day. You're right. And I think, so having said that, one of the positives for this kind of green room area is that yes, we're tired. And yes, sometimes we need to, let's say maybe after the service when you're done doing the greeting or whatever, you can sometimes go and just chill, or even before the service, prep for that amount of work mentally, physically, lots of praying and stuff like that. So I think that kind of work side of it gets almost left out of some of the conversations I've heard, like yes, it can be a detriment to the church if people abuse the green room and have this kind of rock star separation mentality. But I think having a dedicated place where people can prepare, because we get to come lead you guys in worship, and it's not just this, we're playing notes on a page or, memorized music or whatever. We're giving a lot of things that, I just consider to be a little different than those that are just worshiping. Sometimes we have a little more. Anyway, I don't mean that to sound negative. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because it was interesting. I hadn't really thought about talking about the work aspect, but it's there. So far we covered kind of the blessing of being blessed by those that have that gift of hospitality, or in my case, like my wife, she doesn't believe she has a gift of hospitality. I think she does. It's kind of funny. But even if you say you don't have someone like that, and someone just brings a Starbucks container of coffee and maybe some donuts or something or whatever, or even not that. Maybe it's just bottles of water.
Well, right, and that's the thing that I was kind of telling you earlier was, I've described kind of this big elaborate spread at my church and everything, because like we've said, it's a much larger church, but and then when I do come and serve with you at your church,
right.
We have the converted office or whatever, and the thing of Starbucks coffee and the scones or whatever. And so it sounds like a much smaller scale kind of deal. And somebody might look at that and go, "Oh, well, compared to this other thing, that's nothing." But no, it's the same exact thing.
Right.
It doesn't matter what it is necessarily, or the scale of it. It's the heart of it, and it's still. People serving each other and people coming together for getting ready for the service and everything, and it's a huge blessing.
Totally.
Somebody might look at that and not think it is, but it's a huge blessing.
Yeah, I agree. In our case, you guys had been doing that kind of thing longer than we had, but God really put it on my heart, and even my wife's heart. I remember her and I having this conversation about this kind of desire to bless the team. Like, man, because it hit me anyway, I can speak for myself. It hit me really heavily, hey, Chris, as a leader, you have these folks that are just giving all their time, and, God knows you love them, and I'm sure they know that you love them, but I just felt like I could do more, even if I know it sounds silly because it's like donuts and coffee, but
it can be team building.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of what I was thinking was, you know what, I can do more with this gift God's given me of being a leader of this ministry. So I just felt the pressure to just love people. And even if sometimes one of those loving on people is just giving them a donut, you know what I mean? It sounds silly, but and she felt really similar to that. This is something I feel called to do too. So what other positives do we have?
Well, I know for us, we actually have a lot of people that come in from other places to, preach a sermon or do a conference, or some of these things that we've invited them in to do. They're on a tour or whatever to share what God's given them with our congregation.
And that's because you're not talented to do it on your own, correct? No, I'm joking.
No, it's because we value what God's done in them, and they have a word for our church, and we want to bless them and accept what they've got. Right. So it's also a place for them to prepare, because they may be giving this same message 100 times at 100 different places, but like you said, this is still work. It's still spiritual. It affects every part of your being to come up in front of a ton of people and deliver a message or a song or whatever it is that the person is coming up on the stage to do in a way that's excellent and impacting, and that's going to get people closer to God. So, prep time is good. A little bit of separation is good. And
when we say separation, we're not talking about because they want to be separate from people just for the sake of being separate. They want to have a time of preparation, the kind of prayer closet.
Right.
Prep time. I just want to make that clear so that we're not, because going into this next negative part, there's going to be a separation topic we're going to be talking about, and I want to make sure it's a separate understanding. Go on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think dynamics get a little bit different when you go from small church to large church, or anything kind of in between. Things start changing. The smaller you are, the closer you are to kind of a home meeting situation, where the less people you have, the more connection with each other you can have.
Okay, sure.
The more you can get into maybe even questions and answers, less structure is okay, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
The larger the church starts getting, the less connection the pastor himself can have with all the congregants. He's not going to know everybody's name anymore.
Simply because of logistics.
Of logistics. At that point, and this is what a lot of people don't like about large churches that prefer small churches.
I've heard that, yeah.
I don't know my pastor anymore. He doesn't know me anymore. I want to be able to hang out with him. I want to all this stuff. Well, unfortunately, he's called to be a pastor, not your friend. Right. And he needs to be able to pastor the church. And he can't do that and be in a small group with every single person. Mm-hmm. And so then as the church starts growing, we have people put into different positions in the church that have different responsibilities. And for us, we have a whole altar team that handles praying with people before and after services.
Sure.
And that's something that the band can't do because we're doing our thing. It's something
almost
the pastor
like the setup
can't
was
do.
in the Bible.
Exactly. And that's that's kind of what I'm leading towards, is that there is separation a little bit.
Right.
That is there for a purpose, because we are set apart. God has called us to something that he's put in us to do.
Now, are you talking about the pastor, or are you talking about
everybody, really? Everybody who has a calling to go into ministry in some way, or has been given a gift that
to be set apart.
Yeah, has a gift to be set apart. In the same way that
But that's set apart for use by the Lord, not set up.
Right.
Okay. So you're just saying, I'm just making sure I'm clear on what you're saying. Mm-hmm. I'm not disagreeing necessarily, although I think you're horribly wrong. No, I'm kidding. Okay. So as a church grows in number mm-hmm. of congregants, mm-hmm. it becomes less and less, it becomes harder and harder, I should say, for individual members of leadership and or pastoral, whatever, all that stuff, to connect on a one-to-one basis with people.
Right. Okay. And to have an effective service that doesn't go for 16 hours long, you have to start structuring things, and you put all these things into place, you put people into place, you put more structure into the service.
Sure.
And so in those ways, we start to become separate in a little bit, just because we're doing what God's called us to do, and we can't be everything to everyone all the time.
Right. And I think a good example of that, and I think this actually, I can speak from experience, even in a smaller church, I think this goes to this, that this positive, we'll call it a positive separation mm-hmm. Of these leadership roles, whether you're in a band or the pastor or whatever, comes when you are preparing let's say, your service is at 10 o'clock, let's say. It's 9:30, 9:45, getting in there, and your team and you are sequestered into this area or whatever, where you're hopefully praying and you're, individually preparing for worship and praying for those that are coming and blah, blah, blah. If you were doing that somewhere that wasn't sequestered, let's say you were in a more common space, it's maybe obvious, but I think it's good to hear it out loud, is that people will interrupt you. Mm-hmm. And people will want to talk to you. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to talk to people or wanting to minister to people. And to be honest, there's a time when sometimes someone will come get you, pulled out, maybe you have to go minister to somebody, and you won't have that time. But let's just say in a normal circumstance, when you don't have an emergency or something, that time is valuable to the team, because especially if you have like multiple services, you don't have that time mm-hmm. in between things other than this mm-hmm. to prep and to make sure that you're in a place, because we have to lead worship. It's not like we're just, like I said, getting up and bumbling around and then walking off stage. It's like we're trying to follow the Holy Spirit. Mm-hmm. And while I do agree that following the Holy Spirit doesn't take some massive amount of mental capacity but it is one of those things you have to sit and listen for a while. You have to sit and pray. You have to mm-hmm. sit and make sure that you're not, thinking about, did I leave the oven on? So I want to make sure that positive separation is put in the light that, mm-hmm. Like you said, that we have to not be interrupted sometimes, and we have to make sure that we're in a place where we can do that. Otherwise, we have no time to do it or place.
Yeah.
So that's good. I think that's good. I think it's good to say that and admit the fact that there is some separation necessary. Mm-hmm. Now, unless you have more.
Go ahead.
I wanted to talk about the negative sides of it. So this would get more into some of the things in that article I was talking about at the beginning, about the kind of the bad separation. So I've been trying to make sure that's clear, the good and the mm-hmm. bad. So the bad separation, I want to talk about, and this is where that kind of rock star mentality stuff that we jokingly entitled the episode comes in, which is you have this space used for what hopefully is the positive preparation and stuff, but all of a sudden it starts getting used for like avoidance or for this kind of don't need to be a part of the church body or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll speak from one thing I saw, I guess, an experience from my time in worship teams and other churches and things. I served in one team, and again, I don't want this to come across like the church was condoning this. This just happened to happen, and the leaders were trying to fight against it.
Sure.
They had multiple services. I want to say it was 3, and they had a green room off the side of the stage, and they encouraged that you had to be in there at least for one of the services. And you know, since they repeated, it was like, you know, if you sat in for one, you should be in there and engaging and stuff. But, you know, the other 2, if you wanted, you could mingle or you could go sit in the green room and just whatever.
Oh, you should be in the sanctuary.
Service, in the sanctuary.
Okay.
Excuse me. Yeah, if that wasn't clear. You should be in the sanctuary, at least for one of the services. Well, right. I noticed that people fudged that a bit, and they just kind of separated themselves, and all they were doing was kind of staying in the green room.
Mm-hmm.
Now, no one really patrolled it. No one called anyone out on it, but it was something I noted, like, okay, interesting. Like, you don't really have to be a part of the service outside of what you're playing if you don't really want to. And again, this article that we brought up earlier, he also encouraged the folks under his ministry leadership to be a part of at least one of the services and stuff like that. And he said that it's been positive. So I guess having said all that, I guess I'll ask you, do you notice that ever happening? I know you guys are good about that kind of stuff. And what is your setup and what is your thing to avoid that? And what have you seen, positive or negative, in that regard? Because I think that's a danger that if you're not thinking about it, whether as a leader or as someone who's under that leadership, it's really easy to get on just, you know, I'll stay in here and have another scone, or I'll have some more coffee. I'll go mingle and, you know, walk around the outside of the church or whatever, and not be a part of the service.
When I first got there, I believe there was this rule that when we were done, we would, you know, put our instruments down, whatever, and head off the front of the stage into the first couple of rows.
Okay.
So it was an immediate, the band is now joining the congregation. We're sitting there, we're opening up our Bibles, we're taking notes.
That's very noticeable,
we're
because
engaged.
you're coming off the stage.
Exactly. Yeah. That was intentional.
Right.
It was, no, we do not spend our off time in the green room separate and sequestered and all that. Then we got to a point where we were thinking, you know what, to try to increase what we're doing, to try to become better and build teams and build up new people and stuff like that, we're going to head off the side of the stage into the green room and debrief.
Okay.
And kind of go over really quick what just happened, how we can come back for the end of the service or for the beginning of the next service and fix something or address something that needed to be addressed or whatever, and then head out and, you know, go around the long hallway around the side that brings you back into the entrance of the sanctuary, and then come around during video announcements and stuff like that where the lights are down, and kind of sneak back to our seats up at the front again and engage.
Okay.
And so we've been doing that for a while. Sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't. And, you know, I think it's pretty effectual. But still there's that, no, we don't spend all of our time back there.
Right.
You're going to get in trouble if you're doing that.
Right.
Personally, I've used the green room a lot because of things like, for a long time, my wife and I only had one vehicle. And so I'd come early in the morning and do all my stuff. And then second service out of 3, I would, after the music, during the sermon, I'd go pick her up, bring her back, and we'd enter through the back door of the green room and wait for the cue for the band to come back on. I'd come back on, finish out the service, and then she'd be there for the final service of the day, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I'd be in there for part of the sermon, kind of thing. Okay. There was also a season where I was going through a lot of medical issues and just having a lot of low energy. I didn't have a whole lot that I could do, but I could still be on the team and be effective. I was just drained afterwards. And so I'd go and I'd just lay on the couch and listen to the sermon. And
because you have audio in the green room?
Yeah. Yeah. Audio, visual, everything, you know, screens in the green room. And so I'd watch the sermon live and be listening as it's happening and watching for the cue to come back on and get myself back out there and finish out the service and everything. And it was there for me during that time, and I was able to still serve and be there, but just kind of have my downtime when I needed it.
Yeah.
So that kind of helped me. Yeah.
No, that's good. I think that's a good thing to bring up too, is that, sometimes the green room can serve a really good purpose. Like you still wanted to serve the Lord and be there, but you physically were having issues sitting in a chair, or you needed to recoup because you were, the problem with the low energy and stuff. And so I understand that. And I do want to mirror that kind of thing to where, I've seen people that are so hardcore, they want to serve the Lord so bad, but they're like, have the flu or something, and they're just like, you're like, just go home. They're like, no, man, I gotta do this, man. And while I would probably encourage someone to just go home and stop getting everyone else sick, but you know what, if they need to go in the green room and just kind of like let the sermon happen and listen to it, watch it, whatever, but lay down or something, I get that. But I think we're talking about the kind of intentional, I'm not going in there kind of thing. So I think that it sounds like to me, from what I've seen online and read, I don't think that the majority of people are missing sermons, and I think most people are encouraged to be a part of the the congregation and be a part of the service as far as between music and stuff. So that's encouraging. I don't think we're fighting some major battle here. I don't think this is some problem in the church. I just think it's one of those things that was worth bringing up and talking about.
It's one of those things that, because you can start getting into the habit of kind of the feeling of being pampered and having this kind of nice area where you can relax and focus and kind of get away or whatever. It can build towards that rock star mentality like we were talking about. It's like, I'm a musician, I'm a big shot, I've got my own room back here where we kind of do our thing. People are serving me, I'm getting food and drinks, and I had a moment where there was one morning where some people were just walking into the room. The room was just filling up with people, and I don't know who these people are. And I'm like, something kind of came up in me where I'm like, who are these people that are coming into my room and eating my food? Like, this is for me. I mean, not just me, but my people. My people. Who are these people? Come to find out, they're on the production team. I just hadn't met them yet.
Oh, man.
And it was one of those moments where I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not what this room is for. And that's not what I'm for. I'm an idiot right now.
Wow.
Okay.
That's good.
So it was a check. Like I was talking about, we all need to do that check. And God kind of brought that one to me.
Well, you've heard it here, folks. Lauren is a jerk. He is just... No, I'm kidding. No, and that's a good point. I appreciate you putting yourself out there like that. While you're saying that, I was thinking too, not trying to be too judgmental, not on you, but just in general. And I hope this doesn't come across to any of our listeners as being rude, or I'm not trying to single anyone out, but I think that a lot of that mentality seems to congregate, or I should say it's more common, I think, in younger worship musicians. So I'm basing this purely on conversations I've seen and heard online and around. So I could be like out in left field, so forgive me if this is way off, but it seems like the newer folks that are coming up in worship ministries and stuff, I think it's so rock star to have this area and to show up and be basically pampered, people serving you. I don't think they're receiving it like, wow, this is a huge blessing and it's an honor to be able to serve on a team like this, and wow, I can't wait to serve the people. You know what I mean? I think it just inadvertently, because they're even young Christians. I
think we're in a time where production value has been easier for people to bring it up to that level at more churches. And kind of the ideal Christian church service has gotten to be this big production value thing.
Very much so.
That can very easily go towards...
We should talk about that on the show one of these times.
Rockstar mentality. So...
Yes, and I'm looking forward to talking about that on this show, because we have one of these plans, folks. Stay tuned. We're going to be talking about that. But you're right. Again, going back to the kind of the younger crowd. I don't even know what to call it. Just those that are younger than me, which is pretty much everyone. No. And newer Christians, especially like maybe youth in a church that are coming up and starting to get into the worship ministry. You know, they know how to play guitar, they know how to play bass, whatever, drums, sing, whatever. And, you know, they're being brought up properly. I mean, people are ministering to them and loving on them, but just simply for the fact that they're new to this whole thing, it's kind of overwhelming, and they look at it from a different place. And so I think it's our responsibility as the folks that have been in it a while, maybe gone through those things where you go like, man, wow.
We've had more opportunities to be humbled and crushed. And so what we need to do,
humbled and crushed.
What we need to do is do that ahead of time,
crush them
to the younger people.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to crush the younger worship musicians. No, but you're right. In all seriousness, though, I think that's the onus is on us.
Right. We've had those experiences that have brought us down the road to go, we're probably not as prone to.
Yeah. So if that's you out there and you're one of the younger folks that we're talking about, don't get discouraged because, and maybe you're listening to us going, man, you guys are jerks. You're talking about stuff. You know, this is something that isn't a problem for me. And I don't know. Anyway, go, Lauren, go. You just didn't see that. Lauren just put his finger up and got like really bright eyed, like he has a huge idea. Go.
Here's another thing that happened at I'm really glad we had the green room.
Yeah.
So there was a night where one of the people on our team was going through a really hard time in life, but continuing to serve, continuing to be in the house, you know, wasn't secluding, all that. It was good, but we had the opportunity to come around this person and pray with them and pray for them in a way that, I don't know, you just kind of had to be there. It was just one of the greatest times in ministry and in fellowship that I've ever had.
Cool.
Because there was people that barely knew this person in the room, and there was people that had walked through life with them. Mm-hmm. And that combination of everybody serving on the team, it's kind of a team that had been built for a while, so we all kind of knew a little bit about each other, but you know, we're not hugely in each other's lives all the time. And so for them to be able to have a place of safety to open up and for us to pray for them, lay hands on them and just kind of enter in to that aspect of their life, and for them to know that we're there, it was huge. And that wouldn't have happened in the sanctuary or, I mean, and certainly things like that can happen anywhere. Right. But because we had this place where, you know, as a band, we had the safety to just talk about whatever. Mm-hmm. You know, you wouldn't necessarily have that freedom, or you know, just other strange people coming up and getting in on the prayer that didn't have any idea what was going on or whatever. You know, things can get good or bad quickly in different situations. But that was a huge moment for me that I just remembered that you know, the green room was the place for that.
Right. No, and that's a good point too. I think that with you know, a team that served together a long time, or you know, people that know each other, I hate to make a direct comparison, but it's going to come out anyway. I mean, we're like brothers in the trenches, brothers and sisters in the trenches, going through stuff. And so, yeah, you're right. I think that having a place like that is good. I mean, ultimately through this whole conversation we've had, I think that we're settling on green rooms are, one, neither good nor bad. They're just a tool in like everything else we talk about. But I think that there's no reason to be scared of them. You know, Lauren and I talked about that article at the beginning. We don't necessarily agree that, you know, calling something a green room is inadvertently or non-inadvertently saying something bad because the guy wanted to change the name and stuff.
Yeah,
I don't really care what it's called. I think having a secluded place for your team is a healthy thing when used to build them up, to pray and have a place like Lauren was just talking about that you can come around each other and love on each other in that way. I don't see anything wrong with that. Never have. And I think we've hit on pretty much any of the problems that can arise out of it. But there's no reason that has to happen if, you know, leadership and ourselves as hopefully more mature Christians come along those that may not be as mature and just encourage them that way. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
Very awesome. Yeah. So that'll do it for us today. we hope you guys have an awesome 4th. By the time you listen to this, it'll be done. And we hope that you guys have an awesome rest of your week and month. We've had a great time. We want to encourage you to hit us up if you have any questions. We have a few different places you can hit us up. Look up Academy of Worship on Facebook. Look up Academy of Worship on YouTube. And we're on academyworship.podomatic.com as well if you want to see directly where our podcast is hosted. You can make comments pretty much anywhere. But, yeah, look us up. Anything else, Lauren?
Nope.
All right. Well, then for Academy of Worship Podcast, I am Chris Davis.
I'm Lauren Levisworth.
And we love you guys. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.